Mr. B.K. Chaturvedi, former member Planning Commission and former Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Anil Razdan, former Secretary Coal and I think Chairman of our Steering Committee. His Excellency Mr. Augusto Montinil, Ambassador, Government of Venezuela. Mr. V.K. Garg, Mr. Anil Garg, ladies and gentlemen. This, as Mr. Garg said, is a unique kind of meeting or conference where we talk both of coal and petroleum. It's the 9th in its series, and it has been a congregation of people of these sectors to come and deliberate on current issues. That has been the kind of approach in organizing this Congress. The topic, as one sees it written on the wall, it says petroleum gas, coal gas towards a win-win strategy for producer and consumer. To begin thinking about this combination, one must acknowledge that for this country, the reserve is actually coal. It is the mainstay as far as our energy security goes. And while gas and petroleum, well, petroleum is part of it, are equally important. And perhaps when we talk of future utilization of fossil fuels, they play an exceedingly important role. But India perhaps cannot set aside and ignore the large reserves of coal that exist here. We have been under tremendous kind of pressure for a significant shift in use of coal. The various meetings held, beginning with maybe COP12, COP13, so and so, we had COP21, which was a significant meeting where various countries decided on their independently determined contribution. That put a kind of a benchmark as to what you need to achieve by 2030 on carbon emissions. It set the ball rolling for the nation, for the advisors, for the policymakers to decide as to what would be the energy mix in the years to come. When we talk of petroleum, the main issue has been the use of the item in transport. But then one has started thinking, I would say, and pretty seriously, into what happens if the transport sector gets completely transformed in using electric vehicles. What would be happening in the petroleum sector? And I must say that there has been an initiation and discussion and talk into the use of petroleum products for other uses. It could be petrochemicals and various other derivatives that flow out of that. There is a serious thought as to what would happen in that sector. The gas area is something which is, again, very fascinating. Unfortunately, there aren't too many reserves in this country. Discoveries or explorations are continuing. But then we are looking at various other alternatives as well. Coal remains, as I said, what do we do with that if the use of coal reduces and we continue to have large reserves? Well, yes, the well-spoken out answer is, what about the alternate uses of coal? Many countries, we have seen coal being utilized for gasification and then coal to liquid, and then following that would be various other applications, whether it is the chemical industry or it remains itself into petrochemicals or and so on and so forth. If we look purely at the energy scene, that is coal being used and largely for generation of power, what is going to happen in that area? There are many predictions which have been made that what would be the mix by 2030, which indicates that we would be reducing the percentage of coal-based power generation in this country in the coming years, basically to ensure reduction of the carbon footprint. Now, it's going to be, we have predicted that a very large establishment of non-renewables is likely to come up in this country. We're talking of 175 gigawatts of installed capacity. We often talk of low cost of renewables, but then there is one major issue which still needs to be addressed. We sometimes become quite euphoric and very enthusiastic, or sometimes even very emotional about the development of energy storage. And we feel that if the cost comes down to a certain level, we would have solved the problem of renewables. But the fact remains that we will still may not be able to solve that, even with that. Because who is going to guarantee a steady flow of power throughout a 20 or 12-month cycle? The backup of the energy has to be extremely cheap and extremely reliable. I'm not sure whether we have reached that stage and how soon we can reach that stage. Therefore, what we see in the next few decades is quite obvious that there would be expansion in the area of use of coal, at least in India, because we haven't reached that peak level of saturation where you need not generate or say may increase generation by 2-3% as well, but we are looking at increase in generation in much more higher percentages because of the growing economy and the growing need for power. We have reached something like maybe 1100 kilowatts per capita, but we need to go even higher than that. Whereas if you compare it with world averages, it is much, much lower. What really is the areas that one need attention? I would, to my mind, when you look at coal, the main area is to use coal more efficiently. Whether you are replacing the old conventional power plants, boilers, which had a low efficiency of maybe somewhere between 27 to 30% by critical, supercritical, and ultra supercritical power plants, in which we all accept the fact that an increase in efficiency brings down emissions. There is a correlation between maybe a percentage increase in efficiency brings 2 or 1.2% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. So these relations are there. I think some of the papers published from the World Coal Association have also indicated that this is sometimes comparable with establishment of renewables when you want to invest. Now, the point remains that if you cannot get rid of the generation from coal, that the answer really lies in taking this path of higher efficiency and low emissions. we have taken the steps of increasing the carbon sink in this country, but again, that's again a very difficult task, though there has been, I would say, fairly good progress in this area. Uh, Unfortunately, the progress in the area of establishing high efficiency and low emission plants in terms of thermal power plants is still lagging. And it is an issue of investment. Uh, we have often said that a lot of taxes and cesses have been imposed on coal, basically with the intention of using this money to be invested in areas where you can experiment or move forward for the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. That would mean you either promote the renewables or promote research in areas which we can lead to lesser, but unfortunately, this has not seen much of progress. And we have suggested at times that why shouldn't we try and persuade the government that in case a power plant is moving towards a situation where they will increase efficiency, use less coal, less carbon dioxide emissions, but increased generation of power. In a situation like this could be encouraged, and maybe some amount of benefit, indirect benefit, by taking away the cess for coal used in such plants. These are some areas where one can look at. uh, we have talked in terms of coal gasification in various seminars and conferences. It is an area which is still not highly developed in this country. The few plants that are there where people have tried to do it have not been extremely successful. The largest one coming up perhaps is by Reliance, but Reliance is using petcoke. It is using the petcoke coming out of their own refinery for conversion into gas. But we have a proposal now it's a joint venture with a number of public sectors, which is coming up as a fertilizer plant in Talcher. There is a use of coal conversion into gas and then fertilizer. We need much more involvement and perhaps a much more larger investment and a government push in this area, where we feel that a reserve that exists in large volumes in this country can be appropriately utilized for both energy conversion and for a development of industry, whether it's the chemicals or mainly chemicals. There is a lot of research at various levels that has been done, but somehow it is not getting into a very viable commercial venture. Some of the scientists do feel that the technology which is used for conversion is essentially based on other coals and not Indian coal, and that there is need to look at what modification or what technology need to be developed for Indian coal. There are many issues, and I think that this conference will look at various points that some of which I may have spoken out. And we do, at the end of this, come up with some recommendations and some resolutions. We pass it on to government, and it does have some impact as to what is the way forward. I wouldn't say that this has been a very successful or a very great venture in telling the government, because government has many other considerations, and the movement of these issues with policy is generally not very, very rapid for obvious reasons. I don't think merely accepting an idea gets easily converted into policy so easily in government. There are many, many issues that are then discussed across various forums. So I think this Congress is an important Congress from that point of view, very topical, and we hope that the various discussions that take place do help in coming out with some direction as to where we should lead. With this, I would like to end this address and thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity. Thank you very much.